So last term we did a session down at Manawa on the topic of marking. This is a summary of some of the content. Please regard it as a bit of a draft version, and there is a focus on written tests, and it's probably video clip 1 of 3. So if you're doing any course in education, teaching teachers, that kind of thing, somewhere along the line you will encounter the concept of backwards design. So the idea is that we start with our desired results, and we note that is not just content. It's the results in terms of knowledge, skills and attitudes that you want your students to be able to demonstrate. Next thing, we look then at what acceptable evidence should we gain in our assessments to check out that they have obtained the desired results. So we think of here this as being the outcomes. This is the assessment. And then we have here the teaching learning activities. This is what we do in class. It includes experiences and instruction and a whole range of things. Learning is planned to lead students into experiences and learning that enable them to demonstrate the required outcomes. Now, if we have a look at our corporate policy, it includes, under the assessment policy, these principles that assessment is designed to show validity, reliability, fairness, transparency, sufficiency, authenticity, and academic integrity. And along the way, we make sure our assessments are constructively aligned, which is another way of talking about backwards design. Further on, it talks about a few other things about representation, advice and advocacy. In other words, this is serious for our students. They're criterion referenced, we don't say 50% of our students are going to pass. Then there's special conditions for some learners, other arrangements. And a little bit later we will talk about formative assessment. Just as a final note, I want to talk about the word holistic. So assessment should take place across a program and is not just about the final test. If you've been to our workshop, you will have a copy looking something like this. This is a definition of each of these terms: fairness, reliability, validity, and so on. And we need to have these reasonably fluently in our understanding, in our vocabulary. All right, moving on, just another tiny little bit of theory. This is about the priorities in our learning. We can't cover, in air quotes, we can't cover everything. There are different types of knowledge and understanding. So I'm going to just use J. McT's version of this. There is a large amount of knowledge that's worth being familiar with. There is a smaller amount of knowledge that's very important to know and do. And at the core of this, we have what J. McT calls enduring understanding. It's not possible, if you're doing, for example, an anatomy and physiology course, it's not going to be possible to test every one of the concepts with every student when you have literally hundreds of basic ideas, hundreds of concepts in an anatomy and physiology course. So you need to make some choices and some priorities, and also to note that there are different forms of assessment. So there's an informal check. You might put a few questions on the board and a whiteboard or your projector and just check out how your students are going. You may even mark them electronically if you have an online quiz of some kind. You may observe your students, ask them questions to ascertain their understanding and their knowledge. You may use a case study, present something to the class, split them up into groups, and they interact with the material in the case study in the light of all the other concepts and knowledge they've learned. There are tasks and projects. There are more, but at this point in time, we're just going to focus a little bit more on the written test and how to mark that. Now, these are the key words. There possibly are a couple of others. Let's say you have a maths test. You might use a set of model answers to mark the test. Some other types of assessment can be coped with, say, like a marking guide or a rubric. So remember, a rubric has topics or concepts down the page and levels of achievement across the page. Did not achieve. So you score your student as to where they have made it on each of these different criteria. That's just a quick comment about that. And a marking schedule. Sometimes the emergent style over the past 30 years often has a marking schedule that looks something like this. You have your actual question there that you've asked the students, the written outline of it, and there you are not thinking in terms of an answer so much, but you are looking for what evidence the students should be providing for you to be able to say, yes, they've got it. So we're actually referring back to this. We're asking, what is the acceptable evidence? This is a very important concept. In maths, the answer might be 3.2. Then what happens if somebody puts down the answer 3.19? You need to have in your assessment the potential to write little comments that are the more subtle aspects of what evidence is provided, and this helps get some marking consistency across markers. And you forget too. What you might mark on a Monday, you might forget when you're marking the same thing on a Thursday. So here you list notes about what evidence you're accepting and what you're not accepting. You may even use the term PJ, professional judgment. So in your marking, you write down, you record your judgment of the evidence, but you might put PJ next to it when you know that you have made a decision that might be in a grey area regarding to this schedule. All right, now I probably should have done this first, but this is my last little comment. So here is you, the marker, and there are a few other things that you're coping with and dealing with in your mind. There is the learner. Don't forget to put yourself in the position of the learner when you're creating your assessments, when you're teaching, and when you're doing your marking. You have the actual test and the answers and your marking guide. Could be a marking schedule, a rubric, or model answers, or whatever. So this is a complex matter where you are aware of the learner and you're interacting with the test results, the answers, and so on. You need to put yourself in a special mindset. You are trying to mark with fairness, with reliability, so that what you mark at 6 o'clock in the evening is the same as what you mark at 9 o'clock on that night. You're trying to be valid so that you're actually looking at what the student has written down and just asking yourself, what evidence am I looking for? Is the evidence there? All right, so the mindset is important. It's demanding work, but it's probably best seen as a thing you can do without distractions. You need to prepare yourself and get there. Final comment. Feedback. Just a little note from the policy. Formative assessment is designed to provide opportunities for timely, constructive feedback. Now, when you're giving feedback in an end of term, end of course test, it's very often helpful to get a comment bank. This can just be a Word document with a whole range of things that you copy into whatever feedback you are giving the students. Now, this may be done electronically or on the page, but having a comment bank will save you some time. The problem is giving comments and feedback at the end of a course is often too late. So let's imagine here is our course and we have our final test in week 9. If you give feedback here, well crafted, beautifully constructed feedback, it's not going to be any use to help your student to improve. So what we do is we try and figure out during the time of the course, where can we give formative assessment, feedback, so that students have a chance before the final test, or for that matter, before the final assignment is submitted. They have a chance to improve and to learn. This is another topic. So just to quickly refresh ourselves, we're looking at how to put ourselves into the position to be able to mark effectively with reliability, validity, consistency, to give really good feedback along the way so that students can do their best at that end of course assessment.